Hello, Anashe. Today I would like to review this book, which is Mirror, The Art of Making Magic by Levannah Morgan. And it is from, I don't know, if you saw my book haul from Kapal Ban, then this is one of the books that I got there. And this book also came highly recommended from the Witchcraft Museum in Boscastle, Cornwall. Now, this book is very disappointing for me, actually. It's very, very disappointing. And it's not that it's a bad book, but let me explain to you the problems. Okay, first of all, let me read to you the contents, so you'll understand what's in it. Introduction, magic, the witch's tools, the moon, the sea and the seashore, mirror, lights and reflections, half and home, further reading. And the reason why I'm reading this to you because I didn't see any read it inside or anywhere online. Okay, so the reason why I got this book is because Levannah Morgan is basically the student of Cecil Williamson and another traditional witch is another Cornish witch's student. He awards something, I'm sorry I don't remember the last name. And I saw this and look at this. Isn't that a cool looking book? Okay. But this book has a lot of maladies that many New Age magic book has. First of all, look at it. While it looks very good, A Witch's Mirror, The Art of Making Magic by Levannah Morgan, do you have any suggestions from the cover that this is about her flavor of witchcraft, hence Cornish witchcraft? Okay, this design and choice of titles alludes that her witchcraft is somewhat universal. Okay, and the fact that there is such a thing as a universal witchcraft is a problem of its own. Okay, now let me give you an advice, fellow people of YouTube. If you decided to sit down and write a magic book, do not regurgitate other magic or pagan books that you have read. Okay? If it has been written elsewhere, or, even if like you have written other books, just tell people, this book deals with the advanced subject of growing strawberries for ritual purposes. Okay? And if you would like to see my take on basics of witchcraft, read this and that book, which I have already talked about this in length, or read this list of books that I appreciate and like and helped me to grow personally. Okay? Don't rehash all the basics of witchcraft because you don't know what I know. Okay, and there are plenty of bigger, juicier beginner witchcraft books in the sea, like the Big Blue Book by Raymond Buckland and some other publications. Okay, so don't do that. And also, if you have very little to contribute, or something that would fill a chapter in a book, consider writing a chapter for an anthology on the subject, like magical agriculture, the art of raising strawberries for ritual purposes. Okay, this is just something that I thought about. Or open a blog. Open a blog. If your goal is to put your magic out there, or your own take on stuff, open a blog. People will read it. People will give you comments. People would have access for this for free. And really, no one today, besides maybe J.K. Rowling, is making money from being an author. Okay? Nobody is becoming rich from being an author. Usually you are writing a book / doing something else. And this is a universal thing. Okay? So one needs to... I'm sorry, I just woke up. So one needs to consider which format is more suitable for their things. Because if basically what you're going to do is to write a book filled with fillers and some little tidbits of information about your specific craft, okay, then that are like unique, then maybe this doesn't warrant the book. Now, another situation in which you might want to write a book, even though it's a generic book or very close to generic book, is if it's like your own memoir or your own take on witchcraft in general that needs to last for a few generations for some weird reason, because you are the high priestess of this very prosperous coven and you need to publish your own spell book, for instance, the stuff that are not oath-bound for the rest of the coven. Those are the only excuses to reproduce. Oh, and if something very important about magic is already out of print and off the internet. Those would be the reason to rehash old materials, okay? Now, she wanted to write a fun little book about all sorts of subjects. But it seems to me that the moment she gets on a subject, the moment the subject becomes interesting, the chapter ends. It's like introduction, some interesting information, the chapter ends. And this is very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And I'm not saying that her book is especially bad, but her book is not especially good. And it seemed to me that this book tried to fit in a lot of, I don't know, tell me people, people who watches my video, have you been to the Boscastle Museum of Witchcraft? If you did, please tell me. They have sophisticated works of Cornish witchcraft there, and this book is telling me basically that the sophistication is gone. Okay, that no longer does magic is sophisticated in Cornwall. That now it's just like a boring old thing. Now she alludes to several interesting things. For instance, she has a very interesting chapter about sea witchery, but again, it's too short. I wouldn't buy the book for this chapter. But if you are a sea witch and this is your thing, you might consider like picking it up and read it, okay? Or for instance, in the Cornish Museum of Witchcraft, okay, bull rollers, okay, which are basically a piece of flint tied to a string, and you move it around the air like in a circle, and it does a woo woo woo. It does this noise. And people are like, are wild about those things. And, and there are like texts upon texts about those usage of those things in Cornish folklore. And she writes a paragraph. And it's like, most of it is like how to craft one. And she basically in that entire paragraph says that the spirits likes this sound and it attracts good spirits. She doesn't touch any of the other subject that has been touched in the Museum of Witchcraft per se, okay? Or for instance, in the spirit of spirit jars and spirit houses, which is very interesting to me in other people, especially people who came from, some African diaspora place, how the Cornish people are making their spirit houses and put stuff in the spirit jar, okay? And in the Witchcraft Museum of Boscastle, they have some very interesting spirit jars. For instance, one that would contain a puff mushroom, a pink bra, some earth. It's like, and Cecil Williamson says that the folklorific ramification of this spirit house is very interesting, but is too complex to explain on a card. But I kind of expected her to explain the reasoning behind putting a bra and a puff mushroom and eggshells in a jar, okay? I expected her to sit down and break this down to me, but she's like, no, just put in there what the spirit has you, go with your intuition, and intuition is very nice, but intuition is not the solution for every problem that you have in witchcraft, okay? Intuition is not, it's a very emotional tool, but it's not a tool of intellectual studying, okay, and understanding. So, if you don't have to buy this book, if you can get it from a library or borrow it, read it, and put it back because you're curious, do it. It's a half a day read. It's like not even 120 pages, okay? So read it. It's very light. It's not so difficult. I would like, I might use the sea witchery chapters. I might use the chapter about house protections, as a variation for other texts, but those are things that I could find on blogs and you know, and more and better, bigger, better books. And Levannah Morgan, if you're watching this, I know you know more. I know that your information is much more intricate from this, okay? I know you can teach the more advanced season witch. Next book, please do better. Do better. You can do better. Thank you. Goodbye, Nasher.